Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to check out 3 different Pokemon centers in Japan. These are the Pokemon Center in Tokyo, Fukuoka, as well as Osaka, and for each Pokemon Center I'm going to try to briefly describe what makes it unique and sort of if there's any differences, and then finally I'll try to review and say which one I think is the best. First up is the iconic Pokemon Center in Tokyo, but more specifically, this was the Pokemon Center Tokyo DX location. Definitely a must visit if you're passing through Japan's capital. Obviously, Tokyo is a super vibrant city with a densely packed population, so definitely was a little bit more crowded than the other Pokemon centers we went to, but this was probably the biggest Pokemon Center, and I thought it was pretty unique, mostly because right as you enter, you're greeted with that huge Snorlax. But my favorite part about this Pokemon Center is actually this whole wall of video games, sort of like the evolution of the video games, starting from the Game Boy game and progressing through Nintendo games, as well as several other consoles that I probably missed, but eventually leading up to the Scarlet and Violet games. I also really like how they showed iconic battle scenes as well as gameplay footage from each of these video games. I found that to be pretty interesting. Right as you enter the Pokemon Center, there's quite a lot of plushies, but what really caught our attention was the Pokemon card section. I'm a pretty big collector, like many other Japanese people here. They're huge on Pokemon cards, so naturally there's quite a large selection of Pokemon cards of the recent sets, as well as different tins and binders. But what's really unique about each of these Pokemon centers is plushies like these ones here. These plushies are unique to the location that the Pokemon Center is in. So for example, Tokyo location, I think one of the Pikachus had a lot of cherry blossoms on it, which likely indicates how Tokyo is well known for their cherry blossoms. So I think depending on which Pokemon Center you go to, you can actually collect a bunch of these sort of exclusive plushies that's only available there. And I'll make sure to point out which ones are the exclusive merchandise at each of these Pokemon Centers. So when we did go, there was the Pokemon Sleep promo, so you did see some of those Pokemon sleeping, in case you guys are wondering. But other than the plethora of plushies, there's actually a lot of other Pokemon themed products such as keychains and other sort of knickknacks. So keychains are shown here. You can see there's quite a lot of different variety here. I think that's one theme that you'll notice across the Pokemon centers is it's actually quite overstimulating. There's quite a lot of different products and it's quite hard to choose from. You really get everything from jewelry to knickknacks to food items and even actually cooking wear or pajamas, so that's pretty unique to see. I should also mention, other than the Pokemon Center, this Pokemon Center location in Tokyo specifically also has the Pokemon Cafe, although you do need to reserve ahead of time to guarantee a spot. So unfortunately we weren't able to get a reservation, but definitely if I was to ever visit Tokyo again, this would be high on my priority list. Just look how unique the food items are, the drink, and look at the unique merch that you can only pick up at this Pokemon Cafe. And next we checked out the sticker section. We have a few friends that are into stickers, so we picked up some unique and sort of exclusive looking Pokemon sticker packs for them. They were pretty happy with it as far as I know. But yeah, you can see the variety is endless. There's notepads as well as little stationery items and binders, you name it, they have it. My favorite ones were these folders that I found. They were artworks of my favorite Pokemons, so I had to pick some up. Really like the design of them. I think Japanese design is definitely quite unique. Especially when you compare it to the North American designs. I feel like Japan, they really, take it up a notch, and I think that's a huge reason why going to Pokemon centers is so fun. Like, where are you ever gonna find a store that carries this many variety of Pokemon items? I definitely think North America can't replicate this. But yes, in case it wasn't convincing enough, I definitely do recommend you guys check out at least one Pokemon center during your visit to Japan. You don't have to buy anything. I feel like just browsing and looking for your favorite Pokemon is already quite a experience. I think definitely something very unique to Japan and unique to Pokemon Center itself. I did browse quite a bit. It seemed like they had an endless supply of plushies. Just look at all of these plushies. A lot of them are quite detailed, as I'll show you guys in a sec, but a lot of them have, I feel like, so much effort put into the design of it and as well as the quality. I think definitely North America, you buy the same Pokemon plushie, there's no way it's going to be as detailed. I feel like a lot of them, aren't even the right color, but here I think everything is exactly on point. So here are the more miniature plushies. They're about 20, or I guess 10 to 20 USD. Definitely think they make a great souvenir or purchase as a gift for your friends. Definitely I think one of my favorites right there, Cacturn. I love the design as well as the detail on it. Very nostalgic. And here are actually a closer look at some of the Pokemon Center exclusive plushies, as I mentioned earlier. So these ones are more limited. I do hear stories that sometimes the Pokemon Centers may run out of those plushies. So do be on the lookout for them if you are a collector like myself. I had to pick some up just for the collection. I do like collecting sort of exclusive items, all things Pokemon. So I did pick up some of those. And yeah, you can just see there's a bunch of plushies, varying sizes. You got pillows, you got the latest Pokemon, so a lot of these were from the Scarlet and Violet era, so don't worry if you guys don't recognize a lot of the newer generations. And if you guys are only familiar with the original 151 Pokemon, there's a huge selection for that as well, so don't worry, definitely something for everyone. So I do think the Tokyo location is probably the largest Pokemon Center, at least just from my personal experience, but do let me know if I'm incorrect. I do feel like out of all the 3 locations that I visited, I do think Tokyo seems bigger and a bit more sort of spread out and a little bit more sort of convenient to get to. And out of all the 3 Pokemon centers I'm covering in this video, this is the only Pokemon center that has the cafe. So if you guys are looking to dine with your shopping experience, you do want to just go to this one, especially just because if you reserve ahead of time, you can try some really delicious looking Pokemon treats as well as drinks. As we were about to exit this Pokemon Center, I did notice those socks. I thought they were really cool. Just look at how bold the colors are of those evolutions. I think it's a nice little fashion upgrade for any of you guys out there. And this is what I meant when I said that they literally sell everything. Those are literally cooking pots as well as dishes. So, if you do want Pokemon themed items around your house, here is the place to go. You got chapsticks, soap, bedtime utensils. But of course, before we actually left the Pokemon Center, had to check out the food. My partner was getting hungry. So there's a large variety of cookies here that are all Pokemon themed. It does taste pretty good. We did try some of these, so can vouch for these. But other than that, they also got candy as expected. A huge selection of candy as well. Not too sure which ones I tried in retrospect, kind of forgot. But yeah, as you guys can see, there's a lot of little gift items as well that you can just pick up. Definitely, I would be stoked if I received any of these. So I think it's a great gift and, definitely a nice souvenir. As we exited the Pokemon Center, you can take a look at the current queue times. You can see all those X's, meaning that there's no free spots essentially at the Pokemon Cafe. But also be sure to check out the Tokyo City map for other attractions as well. So that was pretty much Tokyo. Now on to our next location in Fukuoka. This is a beautiful city, very quiet and peaceful. Not too many tourists yet. I think this is my favorite city that I visited in Japan so far, so highly recommend you guys do check it out for travel. Aside from the Pokemon Center, there's so many things to see here. You can see that the views are breathtaking. This is just a fraction of it. This was Ori Park, by the way. Did stop by it before going to the Pokemon Center, and you can even see little turtles. A city that's really not talked about too much, but I think is well worth visiting, especially since you won't be bombarded by other tourists. And the other perk is you really get to embrace the Japanese culture here. When we went, this Pokemon Center was located in Hokkaido Station. However, I do think it's closed and relocating to another location. So be sure to double check the address before heading here. The first thing we noticed was actually finding this location was quite hard compared to the Tokyo one. I think the Tokyo one, we could just access it from a street. However, here we had to go through several escalators and loops in order to find this Pokemon Center. But that's just maybe one caveat. It was a little bit harder to find, and it does seem to be a little bit smaller, at least from the outside. So as we went in, there was still this Pokemon Sleep promo that I was talking about earlier. And This location specifically gave us stickers if we downloaded the app. So here I got a nice little sleeping Larvitar sticker, quite cute, definitely well worth the app download. And as I walked through, saw different figures, different little gift sets, I would say. I think these were similar to the ones we saw in Tokyo. There were some similarities, some differences. I did notice some more unique items here, but the food items was quite similar to what we saw back in Tokyo. For all the Pokemon cards, the selection seems pretty similar. Each Pokemon Center has this sort of sleeve section, so if you are into collecting or making decks, you might like the sleeves because there's a huge variety of different, I would say, quite exclusive artworks for the sleeves that you can't really find in North America. So if you guys are into that, do be sure to check it out. And then here are some towels in case you want a full Pokemon themed washroom. And then here we got some keychains, definitely a lot of knickknacks. I just want to emphasize, the amount of goods and products here is crazy. You can see you have everything from figures to water bottles to cookingware to plushies, to towels to washroom utensils, as well as the kitchen utensils. So, you really, I feel like every single product that you kind of need, even down to the food items, you can actually just buy at a Pokemon Center. So you got purses, backpacks, clothing. It's almost like, if you want to do all your shopping at the Pokemon Center, you can, and you can just have a full decked out Pokemon themed house, Pokemon themed clothing. I think that's pretty cool. It gives you the option if you really want to. And I think, the plushies, it's all pretty similar in my opinion to the other Pokemon Centers. You have the standard sort of unique plushies that are obviously exclusive to each location, which I do recommend if you guys are into plushies to pick those up, because I actually make sure to get one or two of those plushies at every Pokemon Center. But then I would say majority of the plushies, they're pretty standard across all the Pokemon Centers, meaning that the design, the sort of sizes are pretty similar. And then again, they have the Pokemon Sleep promo, so then there's some, I guess, maybe limited time exclusive sort of plushies for that, so Pokemon that are sleeping. But I feel like you can still pick that up at any Pokemon Center. So these are the sort of plushies I'm talking about that are pretty standard. You kind of find this at every Pokemon Center, so I won't try to bore you guys too much of that. But when I do come across the sort of exclusive, this would be the Fukuoka exclusive plushies, then I'll be sure to sort of mention that. So as always, the Pokemon Center is quite stocked up, but I just want to look at this Torterra. Look how detailed this is. That was one of my favorite Pokemon. I grew up during the Diamond and Pearl era, so I love seeing those Pokemon, and I almost picked that one up. It had a really nice design, super nostalgic for me. So I'm sure, if you guys did grow up with the anime, which I'm sure a lot of people did, especially if you're thinking about going to Pokemon Center, I do recommend, you guys pick out a Pokemon that is super nostalgic for you. I think it's really fun. And honestly, what better place to pick up a plushie than the Pokemon Center itself? And I think this Pokemon Center had a little bit of a bigger toy selection from what I can remember. I don't remember seeing that many toys in the Tokyo Pokemon Center, but so be sure to check that out. And look at this huge sticker wall. I thought this was pretty unique. You got these really nicely designed animated Pokemon stickers that I feel like I didn't see at the other Pokemon Center. We also came across this sort of interactive Pokemon game. So I feel like this is pretty big in Japan. I see this everywhere. Every time I come across it, it's completely packed and there's a long line for it. I think kids and adults both love it. I think how it works is you have these cartridges that have the Pokemon that you want. Then I think you can either stick it into the machine itself or scan it somehow, and you can play those Pokemon in the game itself. So I think it's a cool concept. It's like real life Pokemon. But yeah, here you can just see that I bought some packs. Great experience. And now on to our last location. Osaka, similar to Tokyo, also needs no introduction. Super popular tourist site, but has a lot of great food here. So this Pokemon Center was just a regular Pokemon Center in Osaka, not the DX location. This one doesn't have a Pokemon Cafe similar to the Fukuoka one. but it's located near the JR railway station in the mall. So this was not too hard to find. It was sort of like built into the train station, but you can see some of the toys here right off the bat. It looks the same as what we saw earlier. It's still a decent selection, but maybe because it's located in the train station, I found this Pokemon Center to be one of the most crowded. Perhaps the space is a little smaller as well, and the aisles are a little bit more cramped, but you can see the selection is fairly the same. You have a lot of toys. You got the Pokemon socks. Who wouldn't want to rock out in some Pikachu socks? And what really caught my attention at first were these evolutions. They were in such a interesting or cute, I guess, resting position. They're all sprawled out. It looks pretty realistic. I thought that was a pretty good concept. They're not just like any other plushies. I feel like the evolutions definitely get a lot more love here, but expect to also find a lot of the latest Pokemons from the Scarlet Violet era, so you probably won't recognize them. At least I didn't, and I'm pretty active in the card game. But again, if you like the older gen stuff, there's a lot of that. I can confirm that. You can get big size ones. Although one of the plushies I don't really see here is the life size ones. You can definitely find them online on the Pokemon Center, but it's like $500 or something like that. So I don't see any of those humongous plushies, but definitely they do have some bigger plushies. I did remember seeing a lot of people interested in these sort of figures. I think it makes a great gift, but I'm not too sure if there's some hype attached to this. But obviously it does look really nice. Really like the packaging. I think it'll look great on display. Similar to the other Pokemon centers, this one also had a pretty big selection of stationery items like pencils, pens, binders, erasers, you name it. We checked out their tote bags. We looked at their washroom sort of utensils. I think they had toothbrushes as well as slippers, as you see there. Obviously a lot of them have these figures that they sell here, but I did notice other stores, not just the Pokemon Center, sell these kind of figures. I think Donkey, that store, really popular in Japan as well. They also sell a lot of these toys, so maybe you can compare prices if you're interested. You might be able to save a few dollars. I think what is unique about this store is they have a bigger sort of video game section, and I think card section as well. Definitely bigger than what I saw previously. I also noticed they have like sort of comic books or manga. I didn't see this at the other Pokemon centers, so be sure to check this one out if you are interested. I do see more sort of these trainer toolkits here as well. Perhaps the other Pokemon centers were just sold out when I went. But yeah, usually every Pokemon Center has a sleeve wall, and as well as this pack selection that tells you what you can order. You can see some of the more limited packs. I think it was the shiny set. I forgot what it's called in Japan. But that set, for example, you can only buy 1 or 2 packs of, while the sort of more common Pokemon sets, you can buy several packs. So it kind of just depends on what they have in stock. So here, as I showed earlier, this Pokemon Center also has a sleeping promo going on. You have that really nice stuffy with all the Pokemon sleeping. You have these sort of more unique items as well here. I think the layout here is definitely quite different. It's sort of like circular in nature. If that makes sense, it wraps around in a circle. However, I have to say, for all you Pokemon card fans out there like myself, I do think this Pokemon Center specifically is the best for that. You can see that they actually display what packs are inside each of these booster boxes, as well as in the different products. So if you're unsure about buying, you can see an actual open package. So I thought that was a really nice concept. You can see what's inside, what you expect. Never saw this at any of the other Pokemon centers, so I think definitely this location puts more emphasis on the cards. So as a huge Pokemon card collector, if you guys don't know, I have another channel that's called TCG Collector. On that channel, I make Pokemon card content. So I'm a huge fan of the card game. So obviously, I appreciate this Pokemon Center the most. Definitely really interesting to see. Even if you're not into cards, I think just seeing some of the unique artworks. I always see the cards as sort of little mini artwork portraits. So you can maybe appreciate the art that way. So in terms of the food and plushies, I thought that was pretty similar. However, what's unique about this one is they had an actual pajama section and they do a little sort of introduction on this collection. Pretty cool. You can have like full-on PJs of your favorite Pokemon. It's like, I think it's like onesies, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was unique to this Pokemon Center as well. You know, it's just some really cool stuff. Like, look at these Pokemon shaped mirrors. You can get a Jirachi mirror. I think that would be pretty sick. But other than that, you can see very similar plushies as what we saw earlier at Tokyo and Fukuoka. But again, just can't get over the design as well as the amount of detail that you see in these plushies. Like, you would never see this kind of quality in the North American sort of plushie shops. You just don't get that same level of detail. So obviously, you know, I can really appreciate how detailed it is. Like, look at this Magneton, so precisely crafted, and it's actually such a good representation of the Pokemon. So, you know, being a huge nerd, really liked it. Here's this Groudon sort of sculpture that I tried to capture, but there was quite a lot of people. As I mentioned earlier, this seemed like a pretty crowded Pokemon Center. But this one also had a Pokemon card game area. So again, this is what I mean. I think this Pokemon Center really emphasizes the card game. You have a dedicated playing section, which you don't have at the other two locations. But similar to the Fukuoka one, you also have this interactive gaming section. And look, it's always crowded. There's always a line. I always see both adults and kids play. So, you know, if I had more time in Japan, that was something I really wanted to get into. Unfortunately, I didn't. And like all the other Pokemon centers as well, you have this captcha machine outside of it. So, you know, if you do want some kind of keychain souvenir, you know, I think it's usually keychains here. You can pick some up and see which ones you get. Seems kind of fun. And I believe most of the Pokemon centers have these collectible coin machines where you, I think it was 200 yen, and you can get a souvenir coin from your time here. And yeah, I would say out of the Pokemon centers I've been to, I would say the Osaka one, so this one would be my favorite, just because of their card selection, and I'm a huge card collector. However, the one in Tokyo did have a Pokemon Cafe. I think if you go to the other Osaka Pokemon Center, the one that's called DX, that one also has a Pokemon Cafe as well. But overall, I'd say all the Pokemon Centers are quite similar. I think you can't go wrong. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Really appreciate it. Please leave a like if you guys do enjoy it, and subscribe if you guys want to. Peace out, guys. Have a good one.